This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome everybody to the Easthampton City Council Finance Committee meeting for September 10th, 2025. It's a little after 5:30 p.m. Remind me, did we get minutes for the last meeting?
You did.
Okay.
They were spectacular. August 13th.
Yes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for August 13th.
I would happily move. And I would second that.
Sweet. All right, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So I would like to move to the diff. If you'd rather wait. All right, let's start talking about the diff then. So when we left off, I think we had some ideas about how this was going to work and how it was going to go, and there were a few outstanding questions. And my understanding is that some of that has been cleared up, and there's a better sense of how this is all going to work now. So,
did you want to do public speak first?
Oh yes, is anyone from the public here that would like to speak about anything other than what's on the agenda? Okay. No, that's true. Thank you for the reminder. Hello. Hi. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we was just saying last time we met was on the 13th. We went over sort of what a diff was and where we were with all of that, but there were a few outstanding questions. Would anyone like to update us on what's happened in the last month?
I can start. And so we have been working to figure out exactly where we were, because there was some question around discrepancy and what the schedule was and payments.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have been able to come to resolution on that. And I think Hadel will be able to explain as we kind of move forward. And actually, it might make sense to talk about that first. And we were able to find out that the schedule that we were sent was just a little bit off. And so the schedule had been updated. And actually, what has been paid and what we were owed is pretty close to justified. So, Hadel, do you want to just talk about that really quick?
So we got the updated Excel sheet from the One Ferry Street group this afternoon. I updated all the numbers. 121A payment, which is based off of our income, it has a little bit of surplus, which was expected. 6A adjustment payment has a variance of $2,551.49, which will resolve. We'll figure it out. We haven't talked with the developer yet, so we'll figure it out how to make sure that we get this money. As per the calculation, we have received $198,000 and change, but as per the incremental calculation, what needs to go into the DIF borrowing account is $178,000. So once this DIF account is established, we can move that $178,000 out of certified free cash, and that would be the balance. And then that's the first step. Second step is going to be side by side cited. The payment for the invoices will take place, and we'll do the borrowing, and timing wise, as the borrowing payment will be due, we'll be using the DIF borrowing fund to make the payments with interest and principal. And we also have 3 options, which Brooke can talk about.
So we spoke with our financial analyst today. We have, thank you. What he suggested was either a traditional borrowing, where we borrow up to the $3 million in equal principal payments, It puts us at about $1.7 million in interest, and we're bonded till about 2051. Or what he gave us were two options as far as not paying on the principal until about 4 or 5 years into the loan and only paying interest for the first few years to kind of save us a little money to start in the front, and we'd end up kind of paying on a longer schedule until 2056, but you're looking at about $2.5 million in interest in the long run. So we have a few financing options.
Definitely, one of them is much more advantageous to the city than the others, which would be the equal principal and interest payments. Because if we did just the interest payment bonding, like for the first 5 years, we're paying significantly more interest. I think like $1.5 million or more.
Yes.
Okay, so there's one option with traditional borrowing. We will end up paying 1.7 million. And that's out to 2051, you said?
Correct. That's if it's bonded, yes.
Yep.
Okay, and then the other options, there's two options, but one of them's better than the other. Is that?
One of them, we, because this is a demolition, money in hand sooner rather than later is probably going to happen. So one of them he calculated out as money in hand as of January of 2026.
Okay.
That's the one that puts us at about 2.597. It's a little bit more interest. One of them would be March of 2026 if we could push back a little bit on needing the funds. Again, it's gonna have to tie into the demolition schedule. The good news is we may not have to borrow up to the $3 million. It could be a smaller borrowing, shorter amount of time, less interest. But we really won't know that until we get the authorization, we go out to borrow, and we get a full schedule from the developer.
And there is a piece of this, which is, this is a little bit incremental. So the first piece is about 250 to 300,000, which would be for the kind of engineering design study for the demolition. And then the rest of and it could be potentially up to 3 million, hopefully less, would be the actual, demolition.
So these numbers here are on the assumption that we do the whole 3 million.
Correct.
But it might be lower.
Might be less.
Okay.
Is there a chance it could be more?
We would not go more than 3 million.
Yeah, 3 million would be our hard
That
stop.
would be,
Yep.
Okay. And so then we would make these payments, but then the idea would be that with either of these, we'd be making these payments, but we'd also be receiving money from the DIF,
Correct.
and we would use that money
To pay.
make these payments.
Right. Now there is, and I don't want to get too complicated here, but I think it's worth noting
Mhm.
that after, I think it's like maybe 4 years in, there's going to be a deficit in the DIF account. And that deficit is going to be 7 years long. I need my glasses for this. And so let me just, so this is starting in 2029. So I was exactly right, 24 years. Starting in 2029, there's a 7-year period where we would be mildly in deficit in this account.
What kind of deficit are we talking?
So,
Define mildly.
well, like the first year is 11,000, but the total would be 208,000 over the 7 years. But we have been working on ways to creatively figure out how to supplement that. And just to be clear, the payments here by the end make up for that deficit. So at the end,
The payments start going up.
the payments start going up. Right? And there's also, and there is another, and stop me if I'm going too fast, because this is kind of complicated. The hope here is that by 2029, which is when we would be into deficit, then the developer, Mike, would have certificate of occupancy, which would then boost the amount that is being paid to the city, and it would erase those deficits. So that's the hope. So what we're doing here is we're kind of looking at this kind of a worst case scenario,
we're preparing for the worst, hoping for the best.
hoping for the best. So this deficit could be a moot point if he gets his certificate of occupancy before 2029.
Did we get a copy of that?
I just finished it, so I can.
This is
send
hot off
it
the
to
press.
you. Or,
I'm very visual. I got extra kids. And so the third column here, projected property tax for incremental back, is what we're gonna get?
And even in the worst case scenario, we are able to recoup the total cost of the bonding
6.85.
plus some.
Okay. Counselors, questions so far?
No,
All right.
doesn't mean I understand it, but I.
It's a lot.
Questions.
It's a lot to digest.
So let me just make sure I think I
Please.
get what's going on here. So basically the idea is that this property would, rather than being subject to standard property taxes, got an agreement, we formed a district, that all happened a few years back. And so basically instead of paying normal taxes, they'd be making payments on a schedule that's
It's right there.
on this schedule. So this is, we know these are the amounts, basically. Is that true?
That
Are
is
there
true.
market factors that would change these amounts?
The only one is the 121A, which is based on a formula, and that we get from the state. And it's based on a formula on the profit that the developer makes during that time. But the 6A, please correct me if I'm wrong. The 6A, Allison, I'm good? Or am I backwards?
No, you're not backwards. You're not.
I'm not backwards. Okay, that's great. The 6A are the guaranteed, like, is not tied to
Okay,
the developer's profits.
so part of this is guaranteed, part of it is,
A little bit
Depending.
variable.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then,
As long as the agreement is revised.
Right.
okay. I'm seeing a hand here from Jane Mantelewski.
I think that might be one of Mike's team.
Jane, if you want to unmute yourself and.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear how the Mayor, you were very good, yes, with the payments. But the 121A payment that goes to the Department of Revenue that eventually comes back to the city will solely be based upon the that amount due from the subleases to One Industrial Lofts. So that one should stay the same. There shouldn't be any additional income or profits or market factor that would affect that. So that one should also stay the same as
Okay,
per
good.
the schedule that we sent you.
Okay, so this is the schedule that we can look forward to. And when we bond, the bonding would be used to do some demolition work on the property. And then the bond payments would be made out of this money. There are a few years where there is a deficit which increases for a while and then starts to fall off. But there's a few years where we're looking at somewhere in the range of $50,000 a year of deficit. So we would need to find the money somewhere to pay that off. But then in subsequent years, it starts getting to be in the mid six figure, going into the, six figures, ending up with, by the 2050, we're looking at $355,000 in revenue. And then the idea is that other than paying off this bond, subsequent revenue would be used for other capital projects in the district. Okay. And then after 2050, what happens?
I think it goes back on the tax rolls,
Just
just like
goes
as a
back to being a
regular.
regular parcel. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm fairly comfortable with that, but I'd sort of like to hear a little bit about sort of what the initial plan is to handle that. I mean, in the grand scheme of the city budget, that's not a ton of money, but is there sort of an idea of how we handle that for the years it's in deficit?
So we have been brainstorming, and I would say that we've been able to come up with some creative solutions. And so I think we would be protected during those times, using the strategies that we've kind of come up with. And I don't want to take the thunder out of this, so I'll just pass it. But it is.
So there is a great idea, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a great idea until external auditors gives me the green light.
Right.
So portion of the last meeting, so last time when I was here, there was another great idea which I implemented. I talked with them and it was all given, and that's where the spreadsheet is coming from. It's basically what he's saying to me is like book all the revenue 6A and 121A into general fund. Take the incremental revenue and put it in a separate fund for DIF borrowing and pay the borrowing out of that. Now, it's not a traditional DIF borrowing. What we are doing is at the back end, it's going to be DIF borrowing, but front end, it's going to be general obligation, because that's going to be much more easier to get and quicker to get through our financial advisor and the whole
And costly.
bond.
And cheaper.
And cost, yes, and it's cheaper. So that piece will be all taken care, and the spreadsheet which you have, if I can take that for a second. So this particular column here shows that what would be the incremental revenue. This is going to be our running balance, and this is going to be our payments. So at the end, this is going to be the DIF borrowing running fund balance. It's all listed here, and that's where we are coming up with this whole calculation. As I said before, there needs to be a revision on the agreement with the schedule and some terms which we will be discussing, but it will take a time and it will be in process pretty soon. So then comes up the point that how are we going to cover that 7 years? And it's every year it's a different dollar amount. I had one great idea, but it ended up being increasing the taxation. I have
Great ideas.
we have another great idea, which I'm waiting to hear back from external auditor. So once I have that, we'll be able to. And as Mayor said, we might not have to go that route if occupancy is in or all these revenues are settled and everything turns and we don't hit another COVID and everything is going to be fine.
Right.
And that's assumption. So it's like,
Otherwise, let's talk about another COVID.
Yeah, no, it's not.
but you have to prepare for the worst situation, right?
True.
You have to think that what could worst can happen.
Okay.
So,
Is there anything about this that is an assumption that could make this derail? Like, is there a percentage assumption? Is there because I see the words down here, 1.25% assumption, 1.5% assumption. And I guess the meat of my question is, what if those assumptions are wildly wrong?
So those, if I understood this correctly, Allison might be able to help me correct this whole thing. Those are already incorporated into the calculation for the table. So those are the footnotes that this is the assumption when they prepared the exhibit. When the agreement is executed.
These no longer are assumptions.
No.
Now,
They become-
it became, so it's not an assumption that it's going to reflect the future of this calculation. While doing the calculation, they assume that this is what's going to happen. And that's why if you look at the tax rate on the first left column, which is in red, right? So those tax rates are way higher than what our tax rate is. So that gets adjusted. So let's say this is all adopted, we borrowed the money. What's going to happen is on my side, when I go in and book all the revenues into the general fund, I will be going into those columns after the tax rate is set, update the tax rate, which is going to change the dollar amount on for the incremental borrowing amount which needs to go into the fund for DIF, which is going to be more than what is on the schedule right now. And that's what I'm going to transfer. So that's all accounting side I have to do.
So one thing I just want to clarify, because I think it might be getting lost, is that the diff revenue is the incremental revenue, which is the value over baseline. Baseline assuming that these properties were never developed and they were still valued at, I think it's $250,000. So anything we would have collected, if it was still $250,000 in regular property tax, is still going to go to the general fund. Anything over that becomes diff revenue.
And is
incremental
predicated on the
revenue.
development of each thing.
It is.
and certificate of occupancy.
But and it's also predicated on the tax rate. So $250,000 at a 20-something tax rate is going to result in a lesser increment. But if our tax rate is lower as it is now at 13 or 12 or whatever it is, the increment is going to be greater.
It's gonna be, I might need some help with that math.
I might not be explaining it well, and I do.
No, I think in theory I understand it, but it's so like, okay, if you have, you're saying that, okay, it's because the payment is the same one way or another, and it's just a matter of which part of it is going to the diff, and that's related to
The
what
tax
the
rate.
actual tax rate is.
Yes.
So we're not gonna end up, because, okay, the way that I thought I understood this for a second, and I started to panic, was that like, if the tax rate is way lower than is here, then this payment is gonna be
No, no,
less.
no.
Like, the payment's coming in is what it is, and the only thing the tax rate determines is what amount of it goes to the general fund and what amount of it goes to the diff. And because of Prop 2.5 and the way that our property rates have been going, our tax rate's not really climbing, so that actually makes us a more like pessimistic forecast than what we actually probably are gonna see, barring something really crazy happening with the real estate market, which I guess is possible, but
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's just the proportion of the payment that goes back to the general fund versus being classified as different.
cool.
That's actually really impressive.
Yeah.
We've been talking that out for like
A long time.
a long time and you just summarized it in like 5 minutes.
Well, I'm not here for my people skills. I think, okay, that all kind of makes sense to me. Counselors, I have a question, but do you have any questions first?
No.
Okay. Just because it's been a month since we started this and it actually came onto our agenda, I think a month before, I have what might be a pretty dumb question, but I think it's an important one. What exactly are we looking for from the council here? Is it just the authorization to borrow? And so all of this about the diff,
No, it's more than that.
okay,
So yeah, it's the authorization to borrow and the approval of the invested revenue district and the invested revenue district development program, which is that long packet of it's like a report basically that I gave you that describes the development program. Exactly. Yep.
okay,
So the invested revenue district is the parcels from which the diff revenues are generated. And the invested revenue district development program is the public projects that will be paid for with, actually, I'm sorry, not just the public projects, but the projects that will be undertaken in the district and funded with diff revenues. In this case, it's just the demos.
okay.
We do have other projects happening within the district that are part of a broader development program.
I guess I was under the assumption that when we developed the established district, we'd already done that, but
Yeah, so it was in the preamble of the order that it would happen later. And so now is later, and we're taking care of that. And what that also establishes is the DIF development fund, which is where these revenues will be deposited to.
Is this the motion that he would make at city council under description of approval process and legislative actions where it says adopt the Ferry Street, yada, yada, ask the city council finance committee? Like, what is he gonna say?
Yeah, so I provided a draft motion. I don't know if you have it with you today.
I think I saw it.
Is that this one?
I don't
It's
remember.
an
what
actual-
it said. Draft
It's an
motion.
actual
I read it
draft
from-
motion. I think what you're looking at is part of the report. But yes, there is, I can probably just read it out. So there's a draft motion for the authorization to borrow or bond up to 3 million, and there's a draft motion to adopt the invested revenue district and the development program.
Do you remember the meeting this was introduced? I could just.
This is the draft motion right here.
Okay. That's from which packet?
July
July.
9th or whatever. I don't know, the July meeting.
There was a special meeting.
Oh.
But you're right. July 3rd. July 9th, yeah. Okay, I'm at it. Okay, I just want to pull this up so that when we do this, I want to do this right.
Okay, I got it.
Make sure that-
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I just want to emphasize this. So all of this, to some extent, is dependent on the demolition and the construction, all of that goes smoothly. Yes? I want to say yes, but I want to make sure.
It's yes to the yes, but no. When we have recourse, that doesn't go
Okay.
perfectly.
All right, okay, that's it then.
Now there's
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that there's a,
Yeah, I'm not gonna say.
there's a something that
I'm not gonna say
helps
it's
us out.
like gonna be great if that happens, but we do have an option for
Okay.
recourse.
I just want to make sure that.
And I also just want to make sure that when, for the motion, the motion should say up to 3 million and not 3 million, because we want to be able to have the flexibility to not fully bond the 3 million if we don't need to.
Yeah, I think that says that here. So let me just read this so that we're sure we're.
That's the
Yes.
authorization.
So, one of us would move that, it's 3 million is appropriated to pay, for executing. So we appropriate 3 million, but it later says the treasurer with the approval of the mayor is authorized to borrow up to 3 million. So,
3 million is the cap.
3 million would be the cap.
We do not want to go higher than that.
so we appropriate the 3 million, but like any appropriation, the city is not required to spend 100% of it. Okay. I guess I'd be willing to, so I'd be willing to entertain this draft motion. I guess probably we should read it in full, just so that we're 100% clear of what's talking about, because this is not a trivial amount of money. So I would entertain a motion to move that $3 million is appropriated to pay for the cost of executing the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program, including demolition of the existing structures at 11 Ferry Street, construction of public utility services, public parking, emergency vehicle access, and any multi-use path to connect Ferry Street to the northern section of the Manhattan Rail Trail, including the payment of costs incidental thereto, and to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow up to $3 million to pay the cost of executing the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program under and pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 2 of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city. Therefore, the mayor and the treasurer are each authorized to take any and all actions necessary to carry out the purpose of this order.
Is that tonight we're doing that?
Well,
Or you
or
just?
to recommend that action to the full council, I suppose.
I just have a question.
Sure.
We have an interim mayor, and
Mhm.
I want to make sure that whatever vote we have cannot be undone by the fact that things that our current interim mayor does may not be considered permanent.
Interesting. I mean, I think that if we're saying this, we're giving this,
I want to make sure that,
my interpretation, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're just giving this authority to the office of the mayor, irrespective of who occupies that office.
But, and I don't, I'm not sure, maybe I don't quite understand, but, is it that if, I authorize while I'm interim, that action could be undone by somebody else if they got in?
correct.
Okay. I think so. As the interim mayor, I'd have full authority, so I don't know if we did that, if someone would be able to undo it, especially if
Wouldn't they be
we,
able to undo it as they would undo anything that any mayor, whether you were interim or not? If you were,
maybe.
if you were a permanent mayor and in November a new mayor comes in, whatever you do now would be as or not as, nothing would change. You can either do it or undo it equally.
Right.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
I mean, it's
because
an
in the
important-
charter, the interim mayor has less power than a full mayor,
He
right?
can't do anything with the budget. He can't add to the budget, I think.
Counselor Krasinski.
It would seem to me that any borrowing what I heard was borrowing occurs January or later. The mayor's action would be required for that borrowing.
Correct.
So really, even if there's a project in place, it would sound to me like the borrowing is just another step to that process.
Yeah.
The actual,
I just
the
want to make
actual
sure.
authorization. You're not asking
Uncharted
for
waters.
the authorization to occur sooner.
Charter.
No, I just want to make sure nothing is,
Because I think whoever is mayor as of November, sometime in
Right.
November,
whoever
with the election, yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking, the
Yeah.
challenges or whatever. But in any case, whoever's mayor would then make that determination.
That choice.
And you were talking March, so
Yeah.
I think
All right, I just want to
Counselor,
make sure that the dates are
right.
Okay, I think timeline
It
it
could
works
be
out.
undone
Yeah.
in
All right.
future.
I just want to make sure.
Right, that's the,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that having been settled, are there any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to recommend the aforementioned language affirmatively to the full council.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then
Yeah.
this one, I guess, should we read, do you think we should read the whole thing? We probably should.
skip
I'm a pretty fast reader. Let's just do it so that, I don't want to say that we screwed up any segment of this process.
Yes.
I get superstitious around this stuff when I don't fully understand exactly what the
get a
legal
little
requirements. Just a little bit stitious, all right.
You say that, my
Uh,
attention.
All right, so this is the draft order. I'm going to read it and then I'll entertain a motion to recommend it to the full council. So draft order of adoption, Ferry Street Invested Revenue District and Invested Revenue District Development Program. Whereas the Ferry Street Development District was created by order of the Easthampton City Council on July 11th, 2018, in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40Q. And whereas the July 11th, 2018 City Council order states that the city's intent to authorize the creation of a development program which would capture revenue in the Ferry Street Development District and use it to finance public infrastructure improvement in the district. And whereas the city desires to create the statutorily required Invested Revenue District, IRD, and Invested Revenue District Development Program, IRDDP. And whereas the IRD will be within the previously created Ferry Street Development District, and whereas the IRDDP will create a plan for public infrastructure improvement in the DIF district, and whereas the IRDDP will establish a development program fund, which is comprised of a project cost account and development program sinking fund, and whereas in January 2021, the City Council approved an agreement under Section 6A of Mass General Laws, Chapter 121A, which exempts the Ferry Street Mills properties from local property taxes and instead establishes a schedule of payments in lieu of taxes, pilot, through 2050. And whereas the DIF framework allows the IRD revenue to be captured and held in the development program fund and invested in the public infrastructure improvements in public infrastructure improvements in the Ferry Street Development District, and whereas the IRDDP will have a duration of 25 years, which aligns with the pilot schedule established under the 6A agreement, and whereas the investment of IRD revenues in the district will allow for the clearance of blighted structures, the creation of public parking and amenities, and will leverage private investment, including development of market rate and affordable housing and commercial real estate. And whereas the city intends to borrow up to $3 million for the purpose of financing public infrastructure improvements in the IRD as outlined in the IRDDP. And whereas the revenues can be used to pay all or a portion of the public debt obligation associated with borrowing from public infrastructure improvements. And whereas the city finds that the IRD and the IRDDP are consistent with the requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40Q, and further the public purpose of encouraging increased residential and commercial activity in the city of Easthampton and in the Commonwealth. And now for the city of Easthampton resolves pursuant to Chapter 40Q of Massachusetts General Laws to designate the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District, such Ferry Street Invested Revenue District being within the previously created Ferry Street Development District, and to adopt the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program on file in the Planning Department, and 3, establish a development program project stabilization date of July 1st, 2025.
Sorry to stop you. That's gonna be revised to July 1st of 2021.
And an end date of June 30th, 2050. 4, establish a development program fund and project cost account and development sinking fund pursuant to said Chapter 40Q. 5, direct the planning department under supervision of the mayor to authorize, direct that the planning department under supervision of the mayor is authorized to take all actions which are required, reasonable, or necessary to administer and implement the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District and Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program. And 6, direct that all municipal departments aid the planning department in the administration and implementation of the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District and Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program, including but not limited to the assessor, treasurer, and auditor departments. 7, direct that all relevant municipal departments report the ongoings of the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District and Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program to the City Council upon request. It is resolved that this resolution be and is a formal duly enacted order of the City Council of Easthampton, Massachusetts, as approved by the mayor, identifying and approving the formation and creation of the proposed Ferry Street Invested Revenue District, Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program, and Development Program Fund, and identifying the entities and or individuals who may act on behalf of the municipality in implementing the Ferry Street Invested Revenue District Development Program within the Ferry Street Development District.
Not read as fast as you feel.
And I'm sorry, I missed, it's July 1 of 2020. I will have an updated one of those, of course, for the council meeting.
Just curious, because the one in the packet only has 5 points and that has 7 points. So I was just
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one is like the final.
Yeah.
I think that one's longer.
Are you just reading this into the record? We don't have to motion
Well,
for anything.
I think that I would entertain a motion to recommend this course of action to the full council.
Whatever version
The,
is the most recent and accurate version.
Well, hang on a second. That's my question.
Yeah.
So that has to be updated And the one that's in the packet only has 5 points. That has 7 points. So I just want to be,
Which is the right one.
which is the right thing we're looking at here before you make a motion.
Sure. So, the 8/13/25 version I have here has 7 points, the whereas and wherefores. I think we're a little bit shorter. The gist of it's all the same. The only difference is backdating to July 1 of 2020 so that we start with revenue within the DIF fund. Because that's what the 121A and 6A payments, that's when they started. So it's just, it enables us to make those bond payments.
So what's the one in the packet, Connie? Is that the shorter version?
I think it's a short, it looks like it's a shorter version, so I'm not exactly sure.
So so the planning department revised this after it was submitted to city council? Is that,
Yeah, it's a draft order. So yeah, it's just a, and I apologize if it wasn't circulated, obviously. But again, I will be sure that it's
Whatever one
in
we
your
read into
hands.
the record. will be-
Yes, yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
want to make
Okay.
sure.
I would entertain that motion
And what's the motion?
to recommend this to the full council.
So we're recommend
whatever
establishing the IRD and IRDDP. It's really, that's what I'm.
To recommend this resolution, I
Establishment
guess,
of
Yeah.
establishing IRD and IRDDP through resolution.
through this. Yeah.
With the amendments. that
Yeah.
were proposed.
And do you want to,
Second? I'm so moved. Second?
so move second.
Okay,
I moved, you second. We got it.
Yeah, there we go.
motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. So we've got a public hearing set for this for our next meeting. So we'll be taking this up in a week. Thanks for all your hard work on this, everybody.
Can I read this at council instead of you?
Do you not think, yeah, sure, but did you not like my reading?
Just to be clear, this is a safe space.
We're not casting aspersions.
All right, yeah, sure, whatever, read whatever you want.
Thank you all.
I move that Councilor Coniff.
No, you're not going to get a second.
Yeah, okay, so
I heard his feelings about them.
it's fine. Business city is more important than my feelings. Okay, so, let's move on. Then, do we want to do the appropriations next, or do we want to do the chapter 320 next? I know that there's a couple people here to weigh in on the 320, so
Are the supplementals quicker to get? some of
supplementals are
these
much quicker.
Folks out of the room.
Are you here for the supplementals?
Just to take it all in.
Okay,
You do your thing. I'm here for you.
all right.
Just to watch.
I just don't feel like going home, do you, Chad?
In that case,
I'm here.
let's talk about yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Allison. Let's talk about the chapter 320 request, because I know Laura's here for that. And
So just point of where we have quorum, so I just want to make sure that we're aware of
yes,
that.
we have quorum. So please, if you are a counselor who's not on this bench, please don't do anything.
Don't speak.
Don't speak. Or we'll get in trouble. Okay, so yes, the 320. So that's just something that I had submitted. It is something that the school committee had requested, and I said I would submit on their behalf. So I'm just going to pull up from the last packet
Here.
Yeah. So, yeah, the basic idea behind this is it's in the packet, but the basic idea behind it is that when right now you have our budgetary process. The mayor lays out budget recommendations, and then the council can cut line items. The council cannot increase any line item. What this act is it's a mass general law that cities can adopt. And by adopting it, it basically says that the city council, if there is a recommendation to do so by the school committee, can increase the budget of the school department. This is something that has been proposed a few times in the past, and it's something that I think could have potentially saved us a lot of grief and stress a few years ago. And so it's something that I agree with the school department that it's worth examining, and that I personally recommend that we do enact. I guess that would be where I would start. Lord, do you want to speak at all to this?
I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, that section that you have is from 1987. That is what we had put forward. This is revised as of 1994. And this was what was originally this full section, Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 44, Section 32, in its entirety was adopted almost as a complete document when they created our charter in 96, 97?
Sort of. I mean, we did a home rule charter, so I think they copied and pasted a bunch of
Much of the
from it,
language.
yeah.
And so the point that we raised at school committee and that we had unanimous support for was to re-adopt a paragraph in this section that had previously been excluded from our home rule charter, which is, it starts right after you scroll down just a little bit. There's a line that says the foregoing.
Yeah.
And then the very next chapter is the paragraph in question. It starts with the city council may by a
Majority vote.
So as it goes on in there, it explains how the process that you had said that would come only at the recommendation of a school committee, which would of course require a majority vote of the school committee. So at least 4 members of the 7-member board that could then be presented to the city council for consideration of increasing. Would also, it would require a supermajority vote of the city council. It would also require that there was, it was demonstrated that it was within the allowable expenses given the projections and the revenue from that year. So for example, if the school committee requested $50 million and you only had 5, you couldn't adopt and pass that. You would be beholden to the cash you actually put on hand. I had another point that is escaping me at the moment. That's it. Point is gone.
So in order for this to come into play, the total budget for the city, we'll just say 10 million. The total budget, you couldn't go above that with what, we couldn't give you more money to make it 11 million as the total budget. Not,
Okay, well, does your total budget include reserve funding, contributions to stabilization,
entire
and
budget,
capitalization?
like-
Okay, so then yes,
the whole budget
correct.
cannot go higher than it is with all the departments in there, everything. Okay, so we would have to take money somewhere else and give it to the school, the
Right,
schools.
which doesn't necessarily mean the taking from another named department. It could be, for example,
From the funds.
less of a contribution to reserve, stabilization, capitalization, et cetera.
Okay.
And that would be at the discretion of the city council. And again, would require a supermajority vote.
So part of this is we would dictate where the money comes from as
Yes.
well.
We would have to reduce something, presumably,
Okay.
to increase something else. You know, so there was an example, in, I think the first year that you were away, Councilor Coniff, like in 2022, we had an example where there was a pretty significant amount of money that was being appropriated into reserves, an amount that by the standards that I think we've adopted today, we would consider to be inappropriate. And at the same time, the schools were looking at an appropriation that was a bit less than what they think they would need to preserve a level service budget. That led to a situation where I think about 8 of the 9 counselors were opposed to this situation, but we had no actual recourse other than to threaten to not pass the budget, which of course nobody wants to do. Like, yeah,
And it also doesn't solve that problem. It's just a performance, honestly, doesn't solve it.
and so, after a bit of brinksmanship, we kind of came to a situation where basically the schools didn't fire people, but needed to later come back for an appropriation. That it ended up being sort of a contentious matter, but this would mean that if we found ourselves in a similar situation in the future, and we don't know who the mayor is going to be in a few months, let alone a few years, if there was a situation where we felt that schools were not being funded appropriately and where we were able to identify, this is important, right? We would need to be able to identify something that we would reduce. It could be that everything's getting reduced because we're in the middle of a recession and we have to tell everyone, like, sorry, this isn't great for anyone. But if there was a situation where I do think, so like in full transparency, if it were up to me, we would be able to do this for every line item, not just the school. Like, I just personally think that is appropriate, but there's not an MGL that you can adopt to do this for every department. There's an MGL you can do to do this with schools. And I think that it might be worth doing this for the schools, in part because I think that the schools are such a critical engine for economic development that I worry that a situation like that one that we ran into, that could have been, I think even just the presence of that standoff, I think probably was not actually great for our district, and it could change the way that people potentially look at our district, which has long-term fiscal impacts. And so that's sort of why, like I said, if it was up to me today to write a new charter, that charter would allow the city council to have just broadly a little bit more. Historical is upstairs, I think. Yeah, or downstairs. I'm not sure. Downstairs.
Or as up as we can go.
Session is upstairs.
What's that?
Oh, there's an upstairs.
Oh,
Listening
city council
session.
listening session is
God.
upstairs.
Okay. So that's just sort of my take on it. I think, Laura, I saw your hand.
I'm so sorry. I remembered the point that I had forgotten earlier. The hope is not that if a situation like that were to emerge, ideally what will happen is that the mayor and the school committee, the mayor as part of the school committee, will work together to create a budget that maybe not everybody loves, but that everyone can understand and support. Had there been something like this lever for the city council to pull in the example that Tom offered, the hope is that it never gets to that exists, thereby it incentivizes instead collaboration as it should take place, but with our finance advisor, our business director, our superintendent, our school committee, et cetera. Yeah.
Questions? Absolutely.
I don't have a question. I'm just, I don't support this. I don't think it's fair. I think that our role is about governance. And I think if this is not something that we can do for every single department, then what we're doing is saying school matters, fire, police, parks don't. And I think that if this council had shown the same response to what had happened with the teachers as they did with the 8 employees, who were also in a similar situation where wasn't just layoffs, it was people were losing up to $15,000 worth of income because of their hours being cut. And so I think this is an instance where we're saying this department we're going to support, but these other departments, it's really unfortunate we don't have the ability to be able to do that. That's one issue that I have. I think with that too, it erodes the trust that we have with other departments because they don't have the same ability to be able to do that. So council chose not to intervene in one instance, but is choosing to intervene in another. So I don't personally think that I don't think that that's fair. But I think with that as well, when you have an item like this, where we now are gonna have to potentially come up with funds if something happens, and we've now allocated or promised the schools additional funds, then now what's happening? I think that could create a real budgetary crisis for us. The other thing is we have a brand new superintendent. We have an interim mayor, and in a couple of months, we're gonna have a different mayor, right? I think that this response is for a mayor that isn't here anymore, right? And so I would hope that our departments would have the ability to be able to negotiate or talk or be in greater discussion with a mayor that might be more responsive, right? The other thing that concerns me is this is a body that is, I think, friendly to schools, right? If people see this as an opportunity or an option of cutting from other departments, then there may be a response where these people are not responsive to the city that I want to see, so we're going to vote them out, and then they could wield this in whatever way that they wanted. And so I just think that this is the wrong time. I think this council is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. And sometimes the mayor has to intervene, and they have to move money in the ways that they do in order to address things. And we should not be involved in those things. I don't think that is our role to manage the day-to-day operations of the council. I think that we try to function fairly. I think we try to do right by our employees and the various departments and the needs that they have. But I would like to see more communication. Not that there wasn't communication. That new mayor would be more responsive to the needs that are being asked. But I think to suggest that we should take funds from our revenue or our other stabilization accounts to cover this, I think that sets us up for financial problems that could lead to increased taxes to come up with to deal with those changes. But most importantly, I think that this erodes the trust that exists between council and other departments in order to have them be treated fairly.
Councilor Koff?
I am in favor of this. I think that it is inherently, there are checks and balances within the actual chapter in that we can do nothing unless the school committee can't come to an agreement with the mayor on an appropriate budget. And unless they vote it, we can't do anything. And it doesn't mean that we're gonna do anything. It just means it's another tool in our tool belt. And I feel like anything that comes with financial ramifications, I just think the more that we can use and negotiate, we can still say no. They can come to us and say, we'd like another $1 million, and we'd be like, nope. And then we're done. So I think that it creates an environment where if we have a horrific outcome from school committee or whatever with the mayor and things go south, that it gives us the opportunity to fix it. I think I don't necessarily agree with it's fair, it's not fair to other departments. I think every department has the ability to argue their case. School committee happens to be a separate entity, the way it's built, the way the government is built, that there's an entire committee and they get the lion's share of the city's revenue, usually, generally. So I don't find a reason to necessarily not do this. Because I just don't think we should get ourselves, I just feel like if we can take some power and neutralize the vast power that the mayor has, I think we should take that opportunity. Doesn't mean we have to exercise it. It means we can exercise it if we need to. So that's just the way I feel about it.
Councilor Bennett?
Yeah, I just don't think we should be using the school's budget to wield power. I just don't think that that's an appropriate
I think the tools that we have in our toolbox actually include being able to negotiate. I think they include being able to cut the budget. But I think the reality is that in the last situation, with the cut in hours, I mean, some people stood there and said, you know what? I don't care. And so this isn't something that I'm going to address. So I think that this sends the wrong message to say that we care about this and we don't care about that. And I just think that this is I think it's wielding power in the way that is inappropriate.
Well, let me just,
Downstairs.
let me at least clear that up as the person who introduced this. That if that's the message it's sending, then I can assure you that's not how I feel. I would personally be pretty opposed to cutting necessary funds cutting from other departments to fund the school. It's really not about this. And if I could do this right now via MGL for every department, I would. As it stands, it will take a charter change. When we were in the budget process, we talked about this, you know, at the time about how we don't have the power to act on this, and that's something we'd like to do forward. When we come to the next charter review committee, that's something that I'd like to do. I'd like to propose, and we'll see where the voters, you know, and the council and everyone lands on it. But that's something that I would like to do because I think that, with absolutely no disrespect for any of the individuals involved, I think that when we built our city charter in the 90s, just due to the place where Easthampton was in, whatever, we gave the mayor an incredible amount of power. And very, very little oversight. And I think that in sometimes that's been a really good thing. But I think that if we are realistically thinking that we are going to always get great mayors who make great decisions from a population of about 12,000 registered voters, most of whom have zero interest in that job, I think we're deluding ourselves. I think that having more checks on mayoral power is a good thing. And you can disagree with, anyone can disagree with me on that. That's fine. But that's just where I personally stand on the matter. It has nothing to do with me thinking that the schools are special compared to any other city entity. It's simply that we can do this right now for the schools, and doing it for anyone else is going to require a more complete process. But I can, if it's a matter of just concern about the perceptions of it, I can say that that's where I am and that's what I intend to do going forward. Laura, I see your hand, but I do see Khayyam's hand.
Sure, I'm not in any rush. I'll just hold.
Khayyam, do you want to weigh in at all?
Yeah, I wrote a quick statement.
Few enough people that I think it's fine. It's my view.
Thank you. Khayyam Jamrah McQuaid, 8 Jones Drive. I'm just calling in tonight to speak in support of the adoption of MGL Chapter 320. I strongly feel that this is a smart reform towards making city budgeting a more overall democratic process. I know that our schools have a whole elected body of people responsible for stewarding one of our most valuable public resources, and they should be able to collaborate with the city council to make sure our schools have the funding they need, which is why the state has explicitly allowed this as part of MGL without needing a charter review. We have examples of this being a challenge in the past, and I think this reform would give our democratically elected leaders more tools to address a mismatch between the budget and our community priorities, providing a much needed check on the substantial discretionary power of the mayor's office. I also think that this should be the first step towards increasing democratic input on more areas of the city budget as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
So my understanding by law, 100% of the school budget has to be funded, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like everyone, yeah.
Right, so this could potentially be, okay. All right.
Laura, I see your hand.
I appreciate the opportunity to just make this comment. So I've been in and out of this for many years, and it is a very small city and a lot of specific personalities are involved. So I just want to take an opportunity to just clarify that my comments in support of this have nothing to do with the most recent mayor in specific. I served under the other 2 mayors before her. This would have been a valuable tool under every mayor in every tenure that I had. And also, we have, as a school department and as a school committee, we have worked very, very hard to restore trust and faith and collaborative partnerships specifically with police and fire, and it's a little uncomfortable that they're here in the room tonight. I don't want them to take the wrong idea from anyone else's comments, that the school views themselves as superior in any way. We certainly don't. We believe they are different departments that are structured differently, not at our whim, but at the whim of the government that we all agree to. And I'm just here as the school committee chair to represent what I think is in the best interest of the school committee, that I then is in the best interest of the city. I think we all work together in different ways to support the better outcomes of the city. So I just want to make that clear. We are not here advocating to take money out of the pockets of police, fire, DPW, or any other specific department. We are looking for more of an opportunity to collaborate with a mayor who is given an inordinate amount of power by our charter. One example of that is the exclusion of that one paragraph on Mass General Law. That's it. So I'll save my other comments for your larger city council meeting. Just sit quietly. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, just to be clear, I never said that the schools were superior, right? So I just want to make sure that that's.
So it's a fact-based information. 2022, I was part of this conversation where stabilization money was too high and there was an appropriation. What happened during that time is the combination of general stabilization, capital stabilization, tax rate stabilization, and cannabis stabilization was taken into consideration. When those specific special purpose stabilization accounts are set up, those are excluded from all of these equations. The only one needs to be considered as a general stabilization, which was not taken into consideration at that point.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Nobody at all is suggesting that you did anything
No.
wrong here.
What I'm trying to say is there was a misconception that city had $11 million in this stabilization account and the decision, however it went. No, I'm just giving point of clarification where the correct information was that. What happened back then, I don't remember, honestly, but I do remember that it was instead of taking into consideration what's available for one bucket should have been taken into consideration versus what's available under 4 buckets. Budget process wise, I have more of the question, not a comment, is when we do budget in-house with mayor and finance team, what happens is we use the whole taxation so that my revenue calculation comes out and I use all the levy max to the limit. There's barely a couple $1,000s at the end when I true up with the tax rate recap. So there's not enough room. If we adopt this and let's say the understanding is that we're going to give it to school, but we're not going to reduce any budget from any other departments.
Well, we'd have to reduce it from somewhere.
So that's where I don't understand is like, how are we going to determine that whose department we're going to reduce? Or we're going to do multiple reduction. Or if you turn around and we say, no, we're not going to reduce any of the departments, we're going to do the general stabilization, for example, like we're going to use general stabilization account. That particular year, it works out. But there's no sustainability of that foundation budget year after year after year to be used through the general stabilization account.
Right.
So at the end, what's going to happen if everything goes as planned, there is no sustainability for the funding source. Eventually, within a year or 2 or maybe 5 years, we have to start laying off people. So my recommendation or my opinion is that we should look into the sustainability, and that's what we all been looking into behind the scene when we prepare our budget. So if we can keep that, it's like instead of thinking like one term, if we can think about like longer term, that would be more valuable decision for the city overall.
I think that that's an important thing to consider, right?
Yeah.
When any council that would like, and just to be clear, I'll say, like, I want the council to have the power to do this. I don't know that I would ever actually personally vote to do it. It would really depend. There was a super specific circumstance where I would have in the past. Will that circumstance ever appear in the future? I have no idea. I don't even know how long I'll be here, but I do think that like it's I think that it's something that there could be a particular situation where it emerges where there's a broad community feeling that the schools are underfunded and that there's an item somewhere that we feel could be reduced. Now, the council has the ability already to reduce it. All this does is it means that we have the ability to reduce here and increase here.
You won't, yeah. But then, how it's gonna play out, and it's like all practical implementation. The idea is there can be really implemented in practicality. So if you reduce it, that means the budget is not balanced budget at that point. When mayor presents the budget, it's a balanced budget. There's an expenditure, there's a revenue, one equals one. That's every dollar we have for expenditure has a dollar match for the revenue.
Right.
Let's say you increase the budget for the school department, where is that revenue is going to come from?
Somewhere. We'd have to decide. We'd have to decide what to cut, and that could be a difficult decision. And in a lot of cases, I think what we'd ultimately decide is that there's no fat to trim anywhere else, and schools are going to have to take a hit like everybody else. I think that's probably what we would decide most years, but there might be a circumstance at some point where, like what we saw in the past, like there could be a year where we feel like we're putting up, there's money that is being you spent in one way or another that the council broadly feels is maybe not appropriate or not necessary, while simultaneously the schools are underfunded. In that case, we'd make a reduction and make a dollar for dollar increase to match it, because we're not going to change the amount of expenditure. That's not appropriate. Like this would only allow us to make a cut and then make an increase somewhere else. What is?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's a pretty high bar before we would ever actually do this. But I don't see why we wouldn't have it in the toolbox. Like, I don't see the harm. There's so much that would have to happen for it to actually be implemented. They would have to vote to do it. We would have to vote to do it with conjunction with all the finance people to make sure that, and probably the mayor, to make sure that we didn't close things up. You know, I just don't, I think the bar is so high, it's probably a very unlikely event that this would come into play. But if it did, it would be nice to know that we had that. If we have another situation like we had a few years ago. I don't see this as an every year, oh, they didn't get an extra $1,000, so we're pulling it from this and now they get it. I wouldn't, that's stupid.
No, and just personally speaking, if that became a regular thing, I would probably start pushing back on that, on saying, well, we need to start thinking long-term about how to make this sustainable. But I just think that it's happened before. We do not know what city leadership is going to look like in a year, let alone in a few years. I think it's nice to have, as Councilor Coniff put it, a tool in the toolbox. That's all it is. It's not a guarantee that we'd ever use it. It's just, that's our thought. Is there anyone else who wants to weigh in on this before we entertain a motion? Okay. I would entertain a motion that the city of Easthampton adopt section 22, chapter 44 of, or is that what it?
No, it's chapter 320 of the Acts of 87, which would allow.
Yeah.
But I think what you're also adopting
It is, to be clear, it's been updated since what you're showing on the screen now.
Okay, and so it's been, okay,
Scroll down,
that was what Laura had said earlier, is that actually
Okay.
it's been updated, and so the one that we actually want
Is
is,
read that part 1, title 7, chapter 44, section 30.
Okay, all right.
yes. So I would entertain a motion that the city council of the city of Easthampton adopt part 1, title 7, chapter 44, section 32 of Mass General
Well,
Laws.
in reality, we're saying that we support this and the council still has to vote on it. We're not
Right,
saying
so
the
we
council
recommend
has to
that
do
to the full council, yes.
What you said. I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second that motion. The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thanks, everybody. We've just got two quick appropriations and then we can get out of here. So the first one is a supplemental appropriation request of $20,000 for the reserve fund to legal for legal costs billed in fiscal year 2026.
I can speak
Do you
to
want to
this.
take that?
So this is a direct result of something that all of us had our hand in, which was the line item reduction in the budget of the legal fees, which was tied to the fact that some people's salaries had been reduced. And so this was kind of something that we, I believe Councilor Kwasinski had proposed to, it was a punitive action. Unfortunately, we need this money to be able to continue forward to pay our legal fees. We ended up reducing it by 75,000. We're asking for 20 now, and we'll probably come back as needed. But that's kind of the long and short of it.
Okay. Councilors, any questions? Well, do you have any questions?
That's not a question. I seconded the motion, so I understand.
We're here where we are. But my understanding is that the whole point of that was to put pressure towards those hours and salary situations. And my understanding is that that's something that's currently being
It's almost complete.
almost complete. So I think we could at least do the 20 now and hopefully restore the rest of it pretty soon. So I would entertain a motion to approve this appropriation to the full council, or recommend this appropriation to the full council.
Oh, I was looking at you to make the motion.
Oh, so moved. I thought you said I'd make the motion, sorry.
I'm just entertaining.
Second.
Right, so moved. Second.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next is $5,830 from reserve fund to auditor salary.
I can speak to this one too.
Okay.
So as when I was city council president, one of the things that happened in my tenure was our auditors' hours were reduced multiple times. I had, in my role as president, had fought to try to get those hours back to where they were because of the situation we were in with our financial kind of tumult. And when I became mayor, this was one of the first and foremost things that was on my mind, was to make sure that our auditor was had the hours needed to be able to complete the many tasks that are required and are really vital to the city. And so this is the cost of bringing our auditors' hours back to where they should have been.
Mhm.
And basically the way we worked it, and the reason why it's this amount of money, is because we said, let's take a look doing this for now, and we'll take a look in the new year if we want to continue this, which I think will probably be the case. But that was my rationale for bringing this forward, was restoring our auditors' hours to where they should be.
Councilor Coniff?
Yeah, what are your hours now?
It's 35 hours a week.
This will bring you to 40.
40, yeah.
Okay. I'm personally in favor of this. I think, one thing that I have kind of just become more and more aware of on this committee is that at times maybe the finance team, like, there's a lot of stuff to do. And so sometimes I come up with things that I would like to see or that I think are interesting. And it's just like, that is not going to happen at the time that we have with all the things that are available. So I think that having more resources available to us as we try and, just settle with all of this, particularly with kind of the economic headwinds that we have, it would it would be a real shame if we fell into a recession and we didn't feel like we had our house completely in order. So I think that this is important and good, and I am in favor of it. Councilor Dunham?
I would actually like to table this item, and the reason I would like to table it is, in part, we have other hours, I think, that are in process of being added back. And I think that this was, in fact, a group action, and for us to support our city auditor before we supported all of them, I think I don't think that's a good message to send. And so I think if we could have all of those items so that they all receive their hours back in unison and in solidarity, I just think that that would be a wholly appropriate response, given that they were all impacted equally at the same time. The hours are not going to go away. We're just tabling it. You're already working your 40 hours. There's funds available to be able to, there's the budget to be able to pay you for that. I just think that it would be a camaraderie, I guess, amongst city employees.
Councilor, or sorry, Mayor Turvey, I'm gonna screw that up.
Yeah, no problem. So it might be appropriate for me to just give a quick update on the hours, the other hours.
Sure.
So what I did was, and I might have said this at my mayor report. So I did reach out to all the department heads and ask them to write me just basically a letter of why they feel like those hours should be reinstated, just to make sure that that it wasn't working for them. And so I did hear back from all of the department heads, and it wasn't working for any of them. And so the only step left is to meet with one or two department heads just to talk about where that funding is coming from. But it is, we're basically at the point where the new PAFs are going to be written and those hours are going to be restored. So it's just a matter of, making sure that we know exactly where in that budget it's coming from. But there's two options really, which is to do a supplemental appropriation now to fund that, or to let them, fund it within their budget now and see if they can find a way to cover that. And then if they need anything at the end, to do a supplemental appropriation at the end. But that's really the only piece that's missing. So it will be forthcoming.
Do you have a sense as, will it all happen all at once? Or are you going to do whichever department comes in with their plan, get them going immediately? And have you given them a timeline that says this isn't going to drag on for months?
No, this isn't the word. Like, I'm hoping to have this done by the end of the week.
Okay. And then the people will
as soon as
extend their hours.
As soon as it's done, a new PAF will get signed.
And the only time you'd need a supplemental appropriation is if they come back and say, I don't have the money.
We don't have the money.
And you would do a supplemental, okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
So we're like there's basically the only person I haven't met with yet is police. So.
Well, look at that.
And so.
I only need 5 minutes. I got a good sales.
Okay, so as soon as, and basically what we're talking about is just a new PAF, which is the agreement to increase the hours back, and we're good to go. So this is forthcoming.
So then I actually would, since Hadel is getting paid the 40 hours today. If we didn't approve this, nothing changes. She's still getting paid. We just are going to at some point run out of money. And if you're telling us that at the end of the week, we should have this all laid out, I kind of think a single positive, we figured stuff out thing, along with a supplemental appropriation for Hadel and potentially a supplemental appropriation for the departments who can't foot the bill, would be a better look. I agree with you. I think, why is one before the other? If the other one is imminent, then let's wait and do them all together.
No, and I don't disagree. I think the only consideration the factor that I had there was that there's different, so Hadel is a department head. So that was the only consideration.
And I would, to echo Connie, she's being amply compensated.
Yep.
And then there are some people who are not. And so we should maybe just take that into consideration, not discounting your department head. That's very good. But I think, that's even more reason to equalize it out a little bit, that we don't want to give the impression that a department head gets a preference over the rank and file, if you will.
I have no issue with that.
All right, well,
Can I add clarification?
yes, go.
Yeah, please.
So, as my mayor said, I'm separate from the union.
Mhm.
There's definitely no favoritism. This is only till December 31st. The whole concept behind just getting 6 months or 5 months of this pay, we have a huge backlog.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
have a lot of, and where we started conversation is, when do we want free cash to be certified this year? Because having it certified in March, April, or May is a full-blown recipe for a disaster financially. So the conversation started with interim mayor is expectation, if we can, have free cash certified by January. Ideal would be October.
And that's a bigger lift for you.
Yes.
Totally get
So
it.
that's where that was.
Totally.
So it's all point of clarification that this
No,
is where.
This is not a,
Yeah.
this is not a question of your
Yes.
workload
Oh, yeah,
or
absolutely.
all that. It's just, it's a visual that I think we can make better.
And
frankly.
Everybody knows.
But you are the hard worker and we know that.
As everybody knows, I always think for the worst thing could happen. So hypothetically, let's say everything goes south and I'm working right now, and then end of this week or in 3 weeks or whatever the time period, it turns out to be that this doesn't go through. Well, number one, if I restore fully my hours, then this appropriation is going to increase for the rest of the fiscal year because this is only till December 31st.
Mhm.
If I'm only doing till December 31st and asking another appropriation in January, that would be a different story. But hypothetically, right now, I got paid for one pay period and this is going to be second pay period by next week. So 2 pay periods, I got paid for 10 each, 20 hours. Hypothetically, this goes completely south. I just want to put this on table that in June, I'm going to run out of the money. And for last pay period, I won't have enough money.
In 2027?
2026, June of 2026. So it's just.
What year are we?
Fiscal.
2020? Okay, next year.
Yes. Yeah. So end of this fiscal year. So it's just like informational.
This is gonna happen, I think, Richard.
It's gonna happen.
Yes.
We value you,
A titch.
and just more than titches,
Many titches.
right? Many titches. We value you. This is going to happen. I think that we recognize that there was, something not positive happened. I mean, there's lots of words I could probably use, so I'm not going to. You are valued equally as the other employees of the city, and
Yes.
we really want.
Everyone will be made whole.
Yes, I think that's, we just want to make it whole together.
Yeah.
And in the case that for some reason we cannot, then I would certainly be approved to move forward to make sure you're fully funded through the end of the year.
Yes.
All other considerations be damned. But if we can do it in a way that feels good for everyone, then why not? So
It's just, it doesn't sound right that auditor's budget is in deficit at the end of the fiscal year.
so yeah, we will not.
Not be.
I will swear on that.
Also, just another point, you might not have appropriations cross your desk
Right,
with this.
understood.
It would just be a PAF that we would file with each department head to restore those hours. If they decided that they think that within their budget, they can absorb this and see what they have left in the end.
Right.
So that appropriation might be coming at the end, and not at the beginning. So I just want to make sure that.
As long as the notification to the council that it is a done deal or an appropriation is coming is communicated to us,
Absolutely.
then we do the next thing after that.
Or if that PA could be approved at by the next day of the finance committee, which would be the next time that we would have
2
come
weeks.
forward to vote on this, I think that would just be the right message to send.
Sure.
Don't disagree.
Okay. I think we've all agreed with each other for about
Look at
20
us
minutes. here.
agreeing.
So I would entertain a motion to table this item.
So moved. Second?
Motion second, all in favor? Sorry, I said this was the last thing, but I'm just realizing that we never got to the rescinding of borrowing authorizations.
Can we please extend that one to the next meeting?
As long as you're comfortable with that.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
super. We'll just not take that one up then. And in that case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.